Hello and welcome back to Leader Feeder. I'm Suzanne Jakes, the marketing coordinator for Unique Training and Development, and I'm sitting down with Kirk. Hi, Kirk.
Hello, Suze. How are you?
I'm great today, thank
Good.
you. I'm
Good,
actually
good.
very excited about this episode today because I
Okay.
think it's just so practical because that's what we like to do here on
Yeah,
Leader
me too.
Feeder, right? Share tips and
Yeah.
strategies for
Make
frontline
leaders'
leaders.
lives just a little bit easier. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
We're only here to help. So what we're talking about today is kind of like the daily challenges that frontline leaders will face.
Yeah.
And we really want to look at, like you have as we know, I feel like everyone starts off their day, at least I do.
Yeah.
I like to, there's a plan, you have, you're prepared for the most part.
The way you hope it's going to go, or
The
like
way
at
you
least think
hope
it's going to go.
exactly, the
that's
way you
right.
think it's going to
Yeah.
go, and then boom, bam,
Yeah. Life hits.
Life hits.
Yeah.
So things change, and I feel but what we've noticed is that happens quite frequently,
All the
right?
time in
Our
manufacturing,
frontline
yeah.
leaders, the ones that we talk to in the training and things like that, talk about how they are just constantly putting out fires. So today we kind of want to take an aspect of like I'm not sure if you would put it this way, but like the quick fix, like the crisis,
the short-term fix, the quick fix, crisis control.
Crisis
Sure.
control, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
To like our proactive, long-term kind of solution. I
that same
think we're
problem.
talking about three things today.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to focus on. And so the first challenge that we find will obviously derail a frontline leader's
Yeah.
day is a line breakdown, like an equipment failure or something like that.
Equipment breakdown, or something's not working the way it needs to. Yeah.
Exactly. So can you share about like what they should do if unexpected equipment breaks down?
Yeah, sure. Well, first thing, so let's talk about the quick fix first, or the short-term fix. The first thing I would do, depends on, of course, your team and kind of the culture on your team, but I would try to ask the team for input, right? When there's a machine down or something's not running, the biggest thing you want to try to figure out is how long is it going to be down and what will it take to get it back up and running? Because
Right.
if something's going to be down for 2 hours, you might decide that having everyone kind of sit around for those 2 hours while we wait might be worth it, because trying to get another line up, might take 4 hours, for example. But if you think something's going to be down for a whole shift, then it might make sense to get the crew working on getting another line up and running so that we don't lose production time.
Right.
So thinking about, okay, how long, based on the current issue, how long do we think that there's going to be an outage, or how long do we think that the line's going to be down or the equipment's going to be offline? And then based on that time, what's our backup plan, right? Is it, unfortunately, it just makes more sense to wait this one out, or is there something else we can be doing? We did a site visit with a client recently where they told us that, there was this machine that's like an electronic or a robotic picker. And so it's picking stuff, and it does, I think it was like over 100 times faster than a human could do.
Wow.
And so they said, but if that machine goes down, which it does from time to time, we just go back to human picking. And so it is a lot slower. Our yield for that day is a lot lower. But at the end of the day, we would rather do that than just say, well, the machine's down, we just don't do anything.
Absolutely,
So that's their backup plan, is they know that when the machine goes down, the first course of action is, okay, people get in there and do it manually. And, there's more, it's more prone to mistakes because the machine is very accurate. The machine is very seldom makes mistakes. There's more of a double checking process that has to happen, but they know right away that that's what happens. So the quick fix, I would ask the team for input. Ask the team involved in the problem. Okay, what have we got here? What do we know? How long do we think it's going to be out, based on either when it's been out in the past? If it's a new machine, you might not be able to use that information, but try to figure out, by asking your team for input, what should we do?
Yes.
And then base your decision on that information available, right? So how long we expect it to be down, what other options are available, and how feasible is each option? And then make that decision. It might not always be the right decision in every case, but you're better off making a sort of a quicker decision. Not super, super quick. You want to ask for input, but you're better off making that decision than taking too long just to make the decision, and you could have already pivoted.
And maybe better because you're asking for the team's input, so there might be a little bit more buy-in. Because if everyone's saying, oh no, we'd like to work together to get that team up, then instead of you just deciding, well, we have to get that line
that's right.
moving,
There is more
and then
buy-in.
everyone's going, oh great,
Well, we would have said to do this instead, but
Yes,
because the boss is
exactly.
making us do it this way. I mean, keeping in mind, sometimes the not so great part about being a boss is that you have the experience and the knowledge that even though your team might think one thing makes sense, unfortunately, you kind of go against that and say, no, this is what we're going to do. That's not always the great part, because you don't necessarily get the buy-in that you want. But if you have a coach mentality of your team and you're used to asking for their input, they might know that, yeah, he asks for input or she asks for input. She doesn't necessarily always take it because she's trying to make the best decision, but she at least considers our ideas and our suggestions.
Yeah.
So ask the team for input, get them together, ask for input, and then make a decision based on that information, right? Rather than just, like you said, that more autocratic approach of like, okay, everyone, here's what we're going to do. You go over here, you go over here. Try to take a minute to ask for input that will increase buy-in and reduce resistance. So that's the quick fix.
Yeah. And what I really like about it is that your quick fixes, obviously are quick fixes, but then the long-term approach of like creating an actual solution or guide. And then when that happens again, you already know. You don't have to go back to the quick fix. You can say, well, like you said with that example, with that, like they already know that machine, that picker machine goes down from time to time, and everybody just gets,
they know what to do.
They know what to do, right? So I really like that, like long-term proactive solution as well.
Yeah, and related to that, the big part about the long-term solution or building the long-term solution is debriefing after the problem is over.
Yeah,
so
good
machine
point.
Goes down,
of course.
Right? The picker's not working. We do the quick fix of just figuring out what we can for that shift. Make time for a debrief after to go, how did we handle it? What did we think, sort of evaluating our own strategy, our own solution that we went with? Do we think we handled that well? Did we make the right decision in this case? If not, what should we have done instead? So that the next time it happens, you can react just a little bit faster with a little bit more certainty.
Yes. I really like that.
So debrief after the problem. And then the other part is debrief after the problem. Evaluate the strategy or the solution that you went with for, strengths and weaknesses. What could we do differently? What could we do better? And then communicate to all of the parties involved. So maybe it's other departments, maybe it's other lines, maybe it's other teams, how the problem was handled and how that went. So you're almost sharing the notes from this debrief. And then you maybe are creating a shared, like you said, a shared troubleshooting guide so that everybody follows the same thing, not even just your team, but maybe other teams.
Yeah,
and speaking of like asking for input, going to the other shifts or the other departments or the other teams saying, what have you guys done when you had this problem? How did you handle it?
Great.
Because a lot of times, especially if we're working in a production facility that's doing 24-hour production, we might not get great communication between, the day shift and the night shift, or especially if there's 3 shifts between some of those shifts. And so we might not know that, they've been dealing with this for a while. It happens maybe more frequently at this time. And we didn't know that they were already dealing with it this way. Oh, that would have been really smart for us to deal with it the same way. That doesn't always get conveyed because sometimes we don't have kind of a shift handover meeting. We don't have that strong communication.
Sometimes we live in our little bubbles with our teams, right? Because you're so focused on how your team is running and how it's improving and how you're doing that sometimes, that's great. Absolutely. Shift handoffs. We have lots of information about shift handoffs if people want to look up those episodes too.
Yeah, for sure.
So another challenge that happens
a lot
with our frontline leaders is staffing surprises.
Yes.
Surprise.
Yeah.
Someone calls in sick last minute. I think that's of course like
normal.
Happens.
It's going to happen.
Pretty normal.
Yeah.
But how would you deal with somebody just not being able to make their shift
not showing up
or not showing up, or what if something crazy happened where they're just not coming in for their shift?
So again, there's 2 pieces here, right? There's a quick fix approach, and then there's the longer term solution that should eventually kind of be put in place. I would say the quick fix, spoiler alert, it's what we just talked about to some degree, which is ask for input, right? Hey guys, we got to keep this line moving.
Right.
We're down a couple of people. Are there any suggestions as to what we can do? But what you want to think about is what can we do to keep production moving as much as possible, right? So if I normally have 3 pickers over here and I have 2 packers over here, for example, or 2 wrappers, let's say, can I get by with maybe 1 picker because both of my packers have called in sick? Can I get by with 1 picker, move one of them over here to doing packing, right, or wrapping, so that I can continue that process? Because if I keep everyone in picking, no one's wrapping, and we're just going to create a backlog of stuff that needs to be wrapped up. So can I instead say, hey, 1 or 2 of you come over here and do wrapping, and you stay on picking? It's not ideal. Yeah. Our quota is going to be down, or our yield is going to be low for today. But at the end of the day, it's better to keep that process moving slowly at a drip rather than a complete stop altogether. Or maybe it's, hey, you 3 continue to pick, and then every time you load up 50 boxes, right, I want you to then all move to wrapping and wrap all 50 boxes so they can get shipped out.
Right.
So again, you're thinking about, okay, what do I need to do to keep production moving? And so that way you know how to staff each machine or each station to make sure that the work is still getting done.
If you were the frontline leader, would you insert yourself?
You might. You might.
I mean,
okay. We deal with
depending,
a lot
of course, on the situation.
We work with a lot of what we call working leaders or working line leads or line leads. So in a lot of cases, those are leaders who, yes, they're the leader of the team, but they're not sitting in an office, outside or somewhere else. They are on the line with everybody else, but they're just kind of in charge. So absolutely, they might already be on the line, but in a situation where you're a frontline leader that typically isn't on the line, if that's an option for you to be able to step in and help out, if it makes sense and the conditions are right and you've got, you're allowed to do that, I think that could be a great help, because that way you're going to keep production moving so that you can continue to hit targets. And I think there's a leading by example component there, which is your team watching you kind of jump in with them and help them get the work done. I think that really builds a lot of trust and respect for the leader when it can happen.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I know that if I was in that situation, I would jump in, but at the same time, I wasn't sure if that's always the right decision again, which I suppose is what you kind of talked about asking for, is you're going to debrief, right?
Yeah, it depends on the
team. How did we do?
That's right.
Was that the right decision? Right. So long-term, proactive approach to this situation.
So what does that look like? Cross-training would be probably the first thing I'd say.
Yes.
So many teams, we don't do enough cross-training, or we do a little bit of it, and then we're like, yeah, it's good, you kind of get the gist, and then we kind of stick someone on a particular machine or at a particular station, and unless our company policy or, the collective bargaining agreement dictates that we have to do rotations, we don't tend to do it. We kind of get stuck, and so someone will spend way too long on one machine or at one station when they could be cross-training on different operations, different procedures, different processes.
Right.
That would make them understand, how the full process looks, which is better for them, because they're understanding sort of, if they feel like they're just a cog in the wheel, at least they understand all the other cogs, so they can go, yeah, I know why my job makes sense. I know where I fit into the bigger picture. So cross-training is really important and really helpful. Train your team members to do multiple roles so that not only can they step in when needed, so a picker can become a rapper, but they can be a confident rapper. They know, I've done this pretty recently. I do tend to do more picking than anything, but I know what the wrapping process is. I know, the up-to-date process, not sort of, I did that when I first got hired 3 years ago, and I haven't touched the machine since then. I'm basically going to have to learn from scratch. Yeah. So having a cross-training plan in place, I think, is your best bet to help minimize the impact or the detrimental impact of those staffing surprises. It's the best way to mitigate it, I think.
And we've talked about before too how to figure that out is the matrix. Yeah. You have a matrix of each of the jobs.
Yeah, the tasks
and
on
then
the line.
The people down the one side, the jobs across the top, and we start figuring out who
can currently do what, and then who can't do certain things, and how do we get them to get to that point where
exactly,
they can.
And who needs to be updated, or when was the last time Sarah was a rapper,
on that line,
or exactly, and kind of keeping track of things that way, which is always a good place to start, in my opinion. I love a good spreadsheet. Yeah. So
that's right. So organized. That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. The third one, which I'm wondering if you have any insight on, is maybe some supply chain hiccups. If there's a quick fix. So what I'm thinking of here is, say parts don't come in, or not as many parts as you think. What would you say to your team or do as a team for a quick fix? Especially when, maybe upper management's saying, we need to up this.
Yeah, so I would say for the quick fix, I mean, there's lots of different kind of models or approaches out there, like Kanban and others, where it's specifically designed to help you avoid running into these situations where you're short on parts. So I mean, certainly if you don't have like a Six Sigma process or Kanban or any of those, you might want to think of implementing that, a more like robust, formalized process. But that'd be more part of a long-term solution. I think your short-term, your quick fix is really thinking about, okay, given the parts that we do have, what can we complete, right?
Right.
Making sure you max out that production as much as you can while keeping people busy. And figuring out the part of the quick fix also is like, okay, what does production look like in the short term? So, okay, that order didn't come in today. Are we getting that order in tomorrow?
Right.
Is it 2 days from now, 5 days from now, 10 days from now? So not just what's going to happen on this shift, but just looking at a little bit longer, but I'd still consider it part of a short-term fix, or the quick fix is like, when will that backlog get fixed or filled in, right? When can we get the parts that we were waiting on, so that we know, is this line down for a shift, for 10 days, for 2 weeks? Are the orders not going to be completed or not going to be fulfilled until then? So I think figuring out where is the current gap, how big is that gap, and then what do I need to adjust because of that?
And who do you need to tell and convey, right?
Yeah, who do you need to communicate with? Yeah. And again, this also comes to, don't forget, ask the team, right? Ask them for their advice. Like, hey, this part didn't show up. This component isn't coming in for a couple of days. What do we do in the meantime? Is there other ways we can be productive?
Maybe we can go, maybe a few of us can go to shipping if this is down, or to a different, area of work department.
Right.
Yeah, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Which is just helps with siloing too.
Yeah, that's right. 100%. Yeah. So that would be more the quick fix. I'd probably say in terms of the longer term strategy, it is finding it could be some pretty big things. One even could be like looking at our suppliers, right? Like, are we with the right suppliers? If this is a constant problem, is it a supplier issue where it's the supplier not being reliable? So obviously that's a pretty big thing, and you might need to go to purchasing and other departments to work on that. But it is something to think about because you might find that purchasing maybe doesn't realize that these hiccups are there, right? Kind of like we talked about.
Interesting.
We talked on a previous episode about purchasing. Buys a part and they don't realize that it's actually kind of a cheap, not well put together part. Yeah. And now they think they've saved a lot of money on the part and they're happy about it, not hearing feedback on it. And now maintenance is dealing with all of these, maintenance requests coming in.
Yeah, exactly.
So if they're not getting feedback, they might not even know that there's much of an issue potentially.
True.
You might have a little bit of a silo happening there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So trying to find out, is it the supplier that's causing the issue? Is it the supply? Like, is it something that's just in high demand and therefore it's going to be challenging, right? I'd say another big part of it is having, again, that troubleshooting guide so that you as the leader aren't always necessarily having to dictate what happens when there is a delay or when something doesn't show up. So instead your team knows, hey, when this piece doesn't show up, when this part is late, this is what we do. We, like you said, we go to a different line and offer to help, or we do as many units as we can, and then we just shut down production because that's just what we're supposed to do.
Right.
So having a solid plan in place so that each time it happens, it's not sort of like, oh God, this is new, it's happening for the first time. And instead the team knows because it's been communicated and shared, when this thing happens, this is our course of action. This is our backup plan. When this thing is short or missing, this is what we do.
Yeah, well, great. Thanks, Kirk. Yes, those are some 3 big things that probably happen to frontline leaders all the time. Yeah. And hopefully they can get some, if you're not already quick fixing it like this, then maybe there's some quick fixes, but hopefully the long-term plans help. Yeah, the most,
exactly.
right?
Really want to move towards, getting out of that quick fix firefighting mode and moving into the longer term. Like, I actually want to solve this problem because it causes a lot of stress when we're doing quick fixes a lot. And we're also we don't have a very empowered team if we're always doing quick fixes.
Exactly.
I mean, obviously, different working environments, it could be that there's a lot of new things happening. If you're in a new production facility, there could be just a lot of new things that had never happened before. And you can't expect the team just to go, well, even though it never happened before, we just did this. They're probably going to come to you as a leader, ask for some insight, ask for some advice. But if there's things that are happening repeatedly, then you want to put a plan in place and empower your people to feel that they can make the right decision to solve the problem.
Absolutely. Update your plans, have it all written out.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks. And if you found this Leader Feeder helpful, we'd love a comment or reaching out to us in any way that you would like. We are here to help empower you as frontline leaders to make the right decisions.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can reach out to us by going to our website at uniquedevelopment.com. You could drop us an email at hello@uniquedevelopment.com. We're here to make the world a bit of a better place by creating better leaders. So if your organization is looking to do that as well, we would love to hear from you and have a conversation.
Right. So thanks for tuning in. And until the next Leader Feeder, we'll say goodbye.
Take care.